Hello again, everybody. It's that time of the week, and welcome back for another episode of Grey Matter Talks Tech, your chance to hear about the latest and greatest of tech's news, insights, and innovations. I'm your host today, Sam Barnes, Azure Solutions Specialist for Grey Matter, and I'm really excited today to be joined by one of the absolute titans in the Microsoft AI space, Guy Gregory, to delve into the world of Microsoft and GitHub AI agents. So welcome to the podcast, Guy.
Hi, Sam. Thank you very much for having me.
No worries. Yes, it's good to see you again. I know we touched base yesterday at the Microsoft's AI Tour event, right, which was very, very powerful.
Yeah, great to see you again yesterday at the AI Tour we had. So it was in central London. We had hundreds of partners, I think nearly 1,000 attendees in person. And wow, what a day we had. You know, such a privilege to kind of catch up with all the partners yesterday, and yourself and your colleague Sunita from Grey Matter there as well representing. So thank you for coming all the way up to London.
No, my pleasure. It was good to see the latest and greatest. I know you were doing sessions on GitHub Copilot SDK and things like that, so we'll touch base on that in a moment. I guess as it's your first time joining us on the podcast, could you actually just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So my name's Guy Gregory. I'm a partner solution architect at Microsoft, and I work in our UK and Ireland partner team. So my role at Microsoft is to help our partners to be successful with our AI services, and my particular focus is on innovate with Azure AI apps and agents. And kind of what that translates to in practice is focusing on technologies like Microsoft Foundry, which is our AI platform, and GitHub Copilot to really kind of accelerate developer productivity.
Yeah, and certainly a hot topic at the moment for a lot of individuals. I know I saw a staggering fact yesterday at the event, funnily enough, which was suggesting that actually agents are already being used in the field. It's just a lot of businesses aren't necessarily aware of them. So being able to utilize great platforms like Foundry to deliver real meaningful agents is key, right? And I guess since we kind of have touched on that a couple of times, it might be worth us just sharing maybe some of the biggest and best things that we saw yesterday, or the things that really stood out to us. I don't know if you wanted to go first of what kind of really impacted you yesterday. I know you were delivering some of the sessions, but some of the conversations and talks that you think our listeners might do well to hear.
Yeah, I guess the sessions that we ran yesterday are a reflection of some of the new products and services that we're launching. So, we have some fantastic new models in Microsoft Foundry, including a GPT 5.3 Codex. We've got the Claude models. We've got a whole host of new services. We've got our Foundry Agent service, which is heading towards GA and should be GA next month. We have the Microsoft Agent Framework, which is currently at release candidate stage, and again, barreling towards general availability. And of course, GitHub Copilot, which is one of the products that I demoed on the stage. And some of the advances in GitHub Copilot, including the coding agent, the CLI, the SDK. I think it was really kind of clear to see how many of the developers who were attending yesterday in our track were telling us stories about how their role has been completely transformed over the last few months by some of these coding agents like the GitHub Copilot coding agent and things like Agent HQ within GitHub.
Yeah, I think that kind of echoes a little bit of what I saw as well yesterday. And I think that the key takeaway that I saw was the fact that there's a lot of businesses out there, and certainly a lot of providers out there, not least Microsoft, that are kind of already playing in this space and delivering lots of different features. But the one key area that I feel is differentiated by Microsoft is that trust element. And that was very key yesterday in the sense of it's not just about deploying an AI agent to do something. It's actually about understanding what it's doing, why it's doing it, how it's doing it, and making sure that you're in control of it ultimately. But it's more about also then having that visibility. And I think one of the key things for me was utilizing something that probably everyone's already familiar with, things like Defender for Cloud Apps, to understand which SaaS Gen AIs agents are actually already being used in the business. And that's something that I know is going to be a very, very hot topic for people as they try and kind of clamp down on things and streamline who and what they use. So that was probably one of my biggest takeaways.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. The trust element is such an important thing, especially when businesses are looking at which platforms to use to build their agents. And I think we've built up a level of trust over the years that has essentially earned us a right to be able to say that we have some fantastic capabilities and some fantastic positions in this space. As well as trust, I think our other kind of key differentiators really that we were able to share yesterday was the breadth of choice within our platform. I think we are certainly, it's rare to see a platform that has such breadth of models like we have. We've got 11,000 models in the Microsoft Foundry. We have models from OpenAI, from Anthropic, from XAI, from Mistral, Meta. We're very much an open platform when it comes to our frameworks. So Microsoft Agent Framework is an open source framework. And yeah, I think we've really kind of shown that we can provide that choice. And I guess the final piece of the differentiation is that fantastic partner ecosystem, which was really kind of evident yesterday. We had hundreds of organizations, and it's just incredible to see such a diverse range of our partners who are so passionate about the products that we're building and the solutions that we're making together. Yeah, it's always inspiring to work with the partners that have fantastic ideas and just, come to us to get some help to execute on those ideas.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's interesting there. One of the key words you sort of used was the breadth of choice, and it's not necessarily just limited to Foundry, right? Because you can use that even in GitHub, where you don't have to just use the native tooling. You've got a full list of different models that are already, able to be, hooked in, whether it's Claude or standard GitHub agents models that you're going to be using. But also you can, as you mentioned, connect in with the Azure AI Foundry models as well to take advantage of those 11,000. Right, so it's not just it's not one platform; it's actually being delivered across the board by Microsoft, right?
Absolutely, I think we're doing a much better job of integrating the products like Copilot Studio and Microsoft Foundry to be able to take advantage of the best from both. And we're embracing a lot of the open standards that we have, whether it's MCP or agent skills, in order to kind of connect these different platforms. A2A protocol as well, which is now part of the Foundry agent service. It's been in the Microsoft agent framework for a while. And yeah, all of these advances, in the platforms are really kind of helping our partners to build better solutions for our customers.
Yeah, it's good. And you did mention just a moment ago is things like Agent HQ, which I was quite interested in because it almost feels a little bit like Agent HQ within GitHub is almost doing something similar in the way that Agent 365 is doing, in that giving you that kind of centralized dashboard. But I wonder if you want to elaborate on that, just to explain kind of how those teams of AI agents can be beneficial for our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that Agent HQ is a very Microsoft, a very GitHub approach to the platform. We recognize that there's lots of choice in the market in terms of which coding agent that you're using. We understand that different coding agents might be preferred for different tasks. And what we want to do is make sure that we build a platform that's right for everybody, regardless of which coding agent, which model, which interface you're using to build. We want to make sure that GitHub is a great place for builders to create their solutions and to build these next-gen AI solutions. So yeah, I think Agent HQ allows integration currently with obviously the GitHub coding agent, but also it's now available with Codex and with Claude Code. And we are going to open it up to more coding agents in future as well. So yeah, I feel like it's a very, Microsoft approach where we're kind of seeing GitHub, as a platform for other partners to integrate into, rather than simply focusing on our own solution, which is the GitHub Copilot coding agent.
Completely.
It's still a fantastic coding agent. I use the GitHub Copilot coding agent all the time, whether it's, in my IDE or in the CLI or in the SDK. But I think it's also great to have that level of choice as well.
Sure. I think as well, it's kind of going that extra mile again to speed up developer velocity as well, because everything's kind of, whilst it's working within GitHub, it's actually doing it in the background for you to allow you to kind of free yourself up for other tasks as well, which, just when you feel like it couldn't be done, it's elevated at another stage again, right? So that's really, really powerful.
Yeah. And I think that these coding agents have come on so far in the last few months that it's almost unrecognizable. It's only a few years ago that GitHub Copilot was just simply there for code completion and to kind of fill in the rest of the line when you were typing away. And that's evolved, so much now compared to where it was. It was originally kind of that. And then we moved to kind of GitHub Copilot chat to be able to interact with it via a sort of natural language interface. Then we kind of evolved it to become like this kind of agentic coding agent, which can work in your IDE or it can work in GitHub Copilot itself. And now with the CLI and the SDK, I really feel like we are releasing the coding agent. We're sort of unshackling it from the sort of repos in GitHub and allowing it to kind of work in the world and to build these coding agents with the new SDK. So it's opening up a whole new range of possibilities for developers.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I guess as we're talking about those extra features, those extra capabilities and kind of the evolution, is there any kind of modalities that are gaining popularity that you see?
So when it comes to using the actual agents themselves, I think we still have the majority of developers who are using it in their IDEs like Visual Studio, but increasingly there are also those developers now who are leaning towards using the IDEs to sort of take advantage of some of the tooling that can be run through the command line. And then, of course, via an SDK as well. And a lot of these coding agents are now opening up their kind of agentic harness to allow them to be used within an application, for example.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I think the real power for me that I saw as well is the ability now for these agents to actually go off, take an action, and then actually be able to understand whether or not that action has actually been completed. Is there maybe extra context needed, or an extra kind of rerun, if you like, to get the right answer? And that's certainly something that we're seeing quite a lot of through things like feedback loops, right?
It is. And, the models are becoming more and more capable. The models are improving all the time. The harnesses are improving all the time. And, the tools that these models have available to them in order to improve their agentic capability is also improving. So, with all of that improvement compounding, the capability of these agents is just really going through the roof. And it surprises me all the time how many of the tasks that perhaps couldn't even be dreamt of doing with AI just a few months ago are now things that can be done trivially. In fact, I do have a very relevant demo that I'd love to show you, actually, because one thing that I was really impressed by when I was trying out the new GitHub Copilot SDK is really kind of how flexible it was and how capable it was once you combined the SDK with some powerful tools, but also using things like agent skills to really kind of improve the capability. So let me just share my screen quickly. So this might be a very relevant demo for folks who traveled to the event yesterday. As you know, after you go to a conference, the activity that you're doing the next day is typically spending several, maybe hours kind of filing expenses, and you've got these little, train receipts like this where you've got to kind of, fill it in, figure out where were you, what were you doing, piece together all the puzzle. You've got, very often I look at the receipt and think, oh yeah, what was I doing on that day? What exactly, which day was it? Looking in my, calendar to figure out, okay, what was the exact business justification for this? And so what I've done is I just created a small demo account, just a demo, just to showcase some of the capabilities of this SDK. And really, this SDK, I'm kind of running it now, and the only prompt that I'm sending it is this prompt here to add the receipts that it can find on my local machine. And I'm just going to show you, this is the folder that I've told it to look at. And it's essentially following an agent skill in order to do this. And it's using the Playwright MCP as browser automation. So let me just show you in here, we're connecting up. We've got the Work IQ MCP, so that it essentially can look in my calendar at the calendar events that I was doing around these receipt dates. It's got the Playwright MCP that allows the agent to autonomously control the browser, and it's got access to a skill. In this case, it is a skill that explains to the SDK how to navigate the expenses system that we have. And what it's currently doing, if you look in the bottom here, it's looked at the receipts, it's found 2 receipts, it's correctly identified what those receipts are and the value of the amount. And what it's currently doing now is it's actually looking in my calendar to find any calendar events that relate to these receipts, specifically on the dates that the receipts were taken. So it looks like it's found some events. Here we go. And so now it's actually just driving the browser using Playwright to fill in all of the information. You can see here it correctly put the business purpose in there as a Java core meeting. And again, I'm not touching this at all. It's all being driven completely autonomously by the agent. Now, is this a good way to do, this kind of expenses thing? Probably not. There are probably better ways to automate this kind of expenses thing, but I just wanted to kind of build a simple demo that really showcased how an agent could actually navigate a traditional, legacy line of business application that doesn't have an API or an MCP interface. Now, if it did have an API or an MCP interface, it'd probably be even better and even faster. But even without those things, this agent can still, navigate through the interface. It can recover, if it's having a problem, and it can, browse through an interface probably even faster than I could browse myself. And you can see now it's added those 2 expense items, it's uploaded them, and now it's ready for me to kind of review that expense report, because it's important that we still have a human in the loop, but it saved me all of that time, all of that grind, and I don't have to, use my brain power to kind of do all that hard work, and literally just completely autonomously done that while we were having a chat within a couple of minutes. So again, that whole process was certainly faster than me doing my expenses this morning. I can tell you that. And I think it just kind of shows you not only the capability of where we are today, but just how far agents have come and will probably continue to go. Because the innovation, it's not stopping. I don't think we've kind of plateaued at this point. We still have a lot of headroom in terms of the model capability, the tool capability, even just the interface to be able to use these agents. We still have a lot of work to kind of do to, a lot of potential here. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting time that we're living in.
Certainly, and I think the thing for me there is that you're leveraging some kind of new innovations as well from Microsoft there. So things like Work IQ, Foundry IQ are becoming kind of front and center with this kind of agent conversation as well, right? So, people that aren't familiar, I know we've probably heard Foundry mentioned quite a few times by Microsoft in the last several months alone, but where it's essentially congregating and aggregating those knowledge sources to allow agents to make sense of what they need to do. And similarly, from a kind of a workflow perspective, is Work IQ is doing the same. So we're likely to see these sorts of innovations now being front and center, aren't we?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one because, as a platform company, Microsoft has existed now for the most part of our history to serve humans, right? We're a company that exists to build products and services that people use. I feel like now we're at a point where we still need to make the best products for people, but we also need to think about how agents will start to interact with all of our products, because it's not enough to just be able to create an interface for a human. We also now need to create the experiences and the interfaces for our agents that are working on behalf of us, whether that's, how do we enable an agent to use a Windows desktop? How do we use an agent to create a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation? These things today are things which perhaps are in development, and, we're looking at shipping these capabilities, but it's thinking about how do we open up the platform to make sure that it's suitable for agents and as well as humans. I think this is the challenge that we have in front of us.
Sure. Kind of makes sense with the whole frontier phraseology as well then, right? Because it really is. It's kind of the beginning of something amazing. So I guess, and this is something I asked yesterday, so I think it's probably quite poignant to mention it here as well, is that where people might be thinking, this is all very well and good, but I'm almost a little bit afraid to give agents too much autonomy. The guidance really here isn't to give them absolute God mode. There still needs to be a form of control in the mix. But is there a way of actually doing that at every stage of the journey? Obviously, we're talking about GitHub SDK here. Can we go that stage further and make sure that we can track and audit what our agents that we're setting up are actually doing?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, that's really where our platform comes in really well. So Microsoft Foundry has, the best capabilities to be able to govern, to manage, and to secure agents. And, the Foundry control plane itself has some fantastic capabilities to do monitoring, to do tracing, to flag content safety risks that come up through the system. We also have a fantastic identity story when it comes to agents and integration with Agent ID to ensure that we are giving our agents Entra IDs in a similar kind of way that we would do with humans, right? We'd have like a Azure Active Directory Entra ID account for a human, so why not do that for our agents as well? And of course, we have integration with Microsoft Purview to make sure that these agents are respecting sensitivity labels and they're not accessing or sharing content which is inappropriate. And then, of course, we also have Agent 365, which is our platform to essentially govern the agents that run within your enterprise environment, and that's agents that are built within Microsoft Foundry, within Microsoft 365 Copilot, Copilot Studio, and of course, third-party agents that are built with other frameworks, other platforms, so things like LangChain or other providers that can register into Agent 365. And then the organization can have full visibility about, who's using those agents, how much are they being used, what are they doing, are they presenting risks, having a full view of your agentic ecosystem within your organization.
Yeah, I think that, again, one of the key takeaways that I saw yesterday was Agent 365 and the true power of it, and actually leveraging solutions that we've known and loved for a while now, the capabilities Defender and Sentinel and Purview. And you mentioned there about, making sure that data isn't leaked externally, or it's at least respected from a confidentiality perspective. I think we often think of that from a user perspective, but now that conversation is shifting to agents, and it's great to see that that's actually being put into that part of the puzzle. And I think the other thing that I really liked about that platform as well is the ability to actually understand the relationships between different agents working within your enterprise space. So it's not just a case of, I want to see what agent 1 is doing and agent 2 in isolation. You can even now start to track what's going on between those. So yeah, 100% a really powerful set of features coming out there.
Yep. And in this frontier world, where we have organizations that are completely embracing AI as a part of their fabric, it's inevitable that we're going to have more agents than employees, right? So if we have all of these systems and management platforms to manage what humans are doing, then we absolutely need to have that oversight and capability to govern the agents that are working within our organizations.
Yeah, and I think it's probably fair and important that we mention that, agents aren't there to actually replace what we're doing, right? They're there to actually give us an extension of what we're doing. And we've seen that massively in the developer space with GitHub and how Copilot's been used there. But there's almost been a slower adoption on the other front when it comes to using sort of 365 Copilot. But we're starting to see that shift now, which is really good. But I feel like people maybe still feel that it's coming to get them, and that's just not the case, is it? It's all about actually extending and elevating to the surface all of the capabilities and features that are already at their disposal, but perhaps are best hidden because either through lack of understanding or maybe new features being added, and they're not able to kind of see what they are. They can now do that through using agents. So I think it's probably worth mentioning that, isn't it? And I'm assuming you're seeing that across the board.
Absolutely, yeah. On one hand, we are very excited about all the progress that's happening in this space and the opportunities that these are opening up for our partners and for our customers. On the other hand, we also really do need to be listening to the people, the individuals who are raising their own concerns about real things like their jobs and their futures and their careers. And these things also need to be taken into consideration, not just at a company level within Microsoft, but I think societally as well. We need to come to terms with a lot of the changes that are happening right now and what impacts those are going to have on not just developers, not just certain industries, but I think most industries eventually will have transformation due to AI in the next 5-10 years. It seems almost inevitable, and it's not like we can just stop the train and get off, because it's out there and it's going to happen. It's kind of inevitable now, and we're already seeing change throughout different industries. I do feel like the software engineering profession have been one of the first professions that have kind of gone through this, and many of your developers who work with you will absolutely have feelings about how AI is transforming their roles. Some people are absolutely delighted that they can be more productive and do more things and do things that they never even dreamt of doing. And some folks will sort of see the sort of existential challenges around AI and have those valid concerns. And, we need to listen to them as well. I do feel quite excited personally, but I think there was a really good analogy that I heard this week I think it was from someone at Anthropic, who said, you spend 10, 15 years of your life learning how to play the violin, and then all of a sudden you are asked to become the conductor. And so that change is going to be jarring for some people.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, some people just want to make great music, and if they can be the conductor of an orchestra that makes them make great music better or easier, then they're very comfortable with that. So I think it's kind of it depends on your outlook, and it depends on what your feelings are around your job. And to some people, writing code is kind of part of their identity, and it's something which is really very personal to them. They see it as like an art form, or something which they are really proud of the fact that they can do. So they do absolutely see AI technology as being a threat. But I think it does open up a huge range of opportunities to more people, not just people who can code, but also perhaps people who thought coding was a little bit too hard for them, was a little bit out of reach. Some of these capabilities are now within reach of more and more people. And I think that's good for the world as a whole.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think it almost comes down a little bit to some of the messagings that, where Microsoft have called it Copilot agents, rather than, it's not there to just do it. It's actually still reliant on you to bring the unique. You mentioned it's almost like an art form. Well, brilliant. But actually, every artist needs a canvas, and every artist needs a paintbrush. And maybe, we can view agents as being that paintbrush to allow us to make the, the artwork that we want. I guess the other thing I wouldn't mind touching on as well, you kind of mentioned threat from a kind of a job perspective, but I think the other side of it is people are also worried about like things like content safety as well, and that's also addressed under Foundry as well, right?
Yeah, we have content safety, which is on by default for all of our models, and it protects not just the inputs, but also the outputs as well. So, I can kind of give the analogy usually of like, think of it as like your firewall, but for a model. So what's going in, we need to make sure that, there's no prompt injections, or, that some bad actor isn't trying to maliciously steer the agent to do something that it shouldn't. And then in terms of the outputs, again, we just need to make sure that those outputs are not inappropriate, that don't cause harm. And, the content safety filters that we have within our platform are incredibly configurable. So regardless of the industry or the use case that you're in, you can tune those content safety filters according to how you want to deploy your solution. And, I'm really proud of the fact that we have these capabilities within the platform. And yeah, I think they do a really important job.
I think the other thing to mention is that there are also other solutions, both from Microsoft and third party, that can almost be used almost like a red teaming effect to look at some of these threats as well. I think you mentioned there like prompt injection and jailbreaking models and things like that, and that can also be picked up through those sorts of solutions. So it's not kind of Microsoft's done an incredibly good job of making sure that we've got every sort of element and all the tools that we need, but there are also other solutions that they provide and other third parties provide as well that can actually add value to that same journey as well, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, the ecosystem that we have for generative AI now is kind of vast, whether it's the models, the frameworks, the harnesses, the coding agents, the safety capabilities, the tools, these kind of things are relatively new within our world, but I think they're growing all the time, and I think there's room for everybody, right? I mean, there's a huge opportunity, and it's growing massively. And because there are so many different use cases in the world, there's never going to be a one size fits all solution, which is kind of why we have that diversity within our platform. Not only with all the 11,000 models that have a range of different tasks, but also the connectors that we have in Microsoft Agent Framework, whether you're using our models, another provider's models, local models, it's kind of designed to be extensible and pluggable.
That's a good question then that kind of comes to mind is, do you encourage people to still create their own models, or would you say that we're at the point now where most of what we need is actually within Foundry and we can just take our pick, because they're being added all the time by various different people, right? So would you say it's still worth building your own value?
It's a good point. We've always had in ML Studio the opportunity for developers, data scientists, for AI engineers to build their own models. We've had that capability even before Foundry, but we've now got capabilities like distillation, fine-tuning within the platform that allow you to take a model, whether it's a GPT model or a Phi model, distill that model into a smaller specialized model that's fine-tuned for your needs. You could still build a model from scratch using our platforms, but I think a lot of people typically will find that the off-the-shelf models that we have in the platform right now can cater for most of these kind of generalized tasks. I mean, they're very flexible models now. They can do a whole range of things, whether it's translation of text to reasoning to planning. And because they are so flexible, and again, they're becoming more and more capable over time, for the most part, the partners that I'm working with are just simply choosing one of the frontier large language models. And it's in many cases able to do the vast majority of what previously would have required several different specialized models, like task models, in order to accomplish a particular task. And you saw me sort of demonstrate there. This was using a very small, relatively small haiku model from Anthropic, and that was doing browser automation. It was doing vision. It was reading the receipts. It was doing extraction of the data from the PDFs. It was doing reasoning and planning, and all of that was just one single model. And again, if you were going to ask me to build that solution even a year ago, that would have probably been at least 2 or 3 models, I think.
Yeah, there's no doubt that they're getting more and more powerful. And actually, that's probably an interesting thing to mention to the listeners, is that actually within the Foundry service, there's an ability to actually evaluate the models that you're considering as well, not just from maybe a capability mindset, but also from a cost per token and things like that as well. I don't know if you wanted to elaborate a little bit more on that and kind of where partners can find that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, even built within Microsoft Foundry, we have this capability to, we've got these leaderboards within the Foundry so that you can actually compare the different models that are available. Obviously, with 11,000 models, some people find that level of choice quite overwhelming. So, we've built these leaderboards across different metrics, whether it's cost, whether it's capability, safety, to make sure that you can pick the right model for the right job.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good and really powerful, because often some of the barriers to entry, people worried that actually the tokens are going to cost them too much and the benefits are going to be outweighed then by what they've got. So it's 100% needed. So I'm just wondering then if you could, I mean, we've touched on it a couple of times, but there's probably a few things that are, coming up for what is going to be next with Microsoft. I don't know whether or not you wanted to just spend the next couple of minutes taking us through that, what you see kind of the next 6, 12, 18 months looking like from a Microsoft AI perspective.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a continuation of the message that we've had for last year, really, which is doubling down on helping our customers to become frontier, and our partners are really the key to doing that at scale. Customers are at various points on this journey. I would say there are still lots of customers that have barely even started down this road. And from our perspective, it's, from our team's perspective, it's all about making sure that our partners are, empowered and capable to deliver these next generation AI solutions that these customers are asking for. So, that's the short term from our team. The products in general, I think we are seeing a big push, whether it's on the Microsoft Agent Framework, Foundry Agent Service, or Agent 365. We're seeing this push towards this kind of GA availability to make sure that these products are absolutely robust and usable within an organization of any size. Having used these products, for all of these products are at least a few months to 6 months old now. So I've been using them in practice in hackathons, helping partners. So I'm already getting a high level of confidence building solutions with these. But at this point in time, with the SDKs and the APIs becoming either release candidate, GA, they're kind of getting to this point where the APIs are locked. Now is a really good time to start learning about these products, because with things like with them being feature complete and an API locked, it means that there's going to be less change between now and when you're actually deploying your solution. So I think, this is the perfect opportunity to start learning about these tools, which in many cases were kind of announced or launched in preview in back in November, but now are really getting to the point where they're getting mature enough to be used in production.
Makes sense. And I mean, because a vast majority of our listeners will be developers, but some will also be end customers and end users. What would be your advice with getting started in the AI world? I appreciate that's probably a question that we get asked the most. Like, I want to do something with AI. Where would you encourage them to start? Is it necessary to just jump in with both feet and start creating your own agents within Foundry, or can you start small? Is there a desired path through? It feels very much like, from my perspective, that's what Microsoft have done. They've kind of almost gone phase 1, 2, 3 with, starting off very small with this is M365 Copilot to unlock the M365 stack, and then moving that into, agents that have got a little bit more capability to remediate workflows. And now we're starting to see this whole agentic space where they're actually able to do things on their own steam and support you. But I'm just wondering if that is a must. Are we still thinking maybe people need to adopt at the beginning still?
Yeah, I think now more than ever, it's a great time to be able to experiment and to build out prototypes and solutions and to learn these tools. So things like Foundry Agent Service, you can build that with the SDK, with the code, but you can also just simply log in with the UI experience and build an agent in 5 minutes. I was doing a demo in one of the sessions yesterday where we just literally built an agent from scratch, from absolutely nothing at all, in less than 5 minutes. And even if you can't code at all, even building an agent with those tools is even more accessible than ever. From a developer perspective, if you are somebody who can code in Python, C#, .NET, then have a look at GitHub Copilot. And if you haven't tried out some of the more advanced tooling, the coding agent, the CLI, the SDK, have a look at these. There's some fantastic code samples out there. There's some fantastic demos, and really kind of find something that perhaps pushes your knowledge and maybe is a bit more ambitious than you would have perhaps thought to build a few months ago, because you might surprise yourself. You might sort of build something faster or more easily than you expected. The whole demo app that I showed you, this expenses system, which is like this fake expenses system, that was built in less than half an hour. I didn't write a single line of code in it, and it's not a fully fledged expenses system. It's not feature complete, but it's enough to be able to demo something like that. That would have probably taken me several months to do in the past, and it would have never been so polished. So I think a lot of people need to kind of recalibrate in their mind what's possible, because to a certain extent, like, the limitation of what you can do is now your own imagination. In fact, one thing that we perhaps end on is a quote from one of my colleagues, Martin Woodward, who's in our developer advocate team, which, at the GitHub Universe conference, he said, developers can now dream it in the morning and build it in the afternoon.
Great line.
And I said to him recently, because he said this late last year, and I said to him recently, actually, I think we need to change that, because now it's more like you dream it in the morning and then just build it in the morning.
Yeah.
We don't have to wait. It doesn't take us that long, right? So
yeah, and that's a really, really powerful phrase. So no, thank you so much for sharing that. I think, as you say, that's probably a good time to wrap up the discussion. I'd love to thank you for jumping on the podcast with us today, Guy, and chatting about all these great tools and updates. It's good to see some of the focuses from Microsoft and where you see the space going.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So for those listening, what you should do next, well, you're more than welcome to reach out to Grey Matter about your GitHub and GitHub Copilot journeys. We've got an extensive partner system that can support you with that, as well as in-house technical specialists. Do watch out for our free Tech Summit event, which will have more technology news, demos, updates, which is due to come out in the autumn. And also, if you are looking at maybe where you can get started, what does your journey actually look like, please do reach out to us and we can start to explore that AI agent ecosystem with you. The email address for that is info@greymatter.com. So all that's left to say from me is thanks very much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We've got more great episodes lined up on cloud, mapping, AI, dev tools, and even cybersecurity. So it's bye for now.